Michael Yaffe was my inspirational leader. Michael Yaffe is currently the Associate Dean of the Yale School of Music, Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. I met Michael in 2001 when he was serving as the Executive Director of the Hart School and Director of the Hart School Community Division of the University of Hartford. Michael hired me as his Associate Director at Hart in 2001, which is where the bulk of my leadership journey began. What were your leadership abilities like when you were growing up?
Um, I don't think I would describe myself in a leadership way until probably my senior year in high school. That was a year in which I felt a certain amount of freedom, I think, and I was part of a group of people who tended to sort of be informally leaders of the high school that I went to.
Okay.
And I think in my senior year is when I felt comfortable to be able to state my point of view and to get people to do what I wanted, what I thought was a good idea. I think earlier in my youth, I think the other part of me characteristically is as an only child, you know, you have a different perspective on the world to some extent, and I think my perspective was always that I got what I wanted, but I don't think I think my more informal style of leadership I don't think developed until really my senior year in high school.
Okay. Were there any specific leadership roles that you had at that time, or?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think back. I mean, it did revolve to some extent around the music program and some of the other activities that I did. It was also a period, Elena, of a certain amount of activism.
Mm-hmm.
It was the late 1960s, and I think I came of age in terms of understanding what was happening in the country. I graduated in 1969,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there were a group of us that kind of took some amount of sort of um, moral leadership in discussions in the school, and I think it culminated. I think when we did a kind of off the wall performance at graduation that surprised everybody.
Kind of like Jimi Hendrix.
Say again.
Kind of like Jimi Hendrix.
No,
Star Spangled Banner.
No, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly, but it was really kind of out there. And then in the summer after I graduated, I worked for election of a senator in Connecticut who actually lost, but was an anti-war candidate,
Mm-hmm.
and I got very politically active.
Cool.
And then college was really where it got framed in a much more serious.
So then going from there, how did your leadership abilities change or transform between then and moving into now? Like, think about all those years.
Well, I think the biggest influence I had was my time at Clark University in Worcester, Mass. Small liberal arts college. Really gave me a lot of sort of vision that I could do anything.
Okay.
It also was a period of activism, and to give you an idea of the time, Clark was a well-known anti-war school.
Yep.
Amongst all the schools that were doing that sort of thing back then. And actually, in the spring semester of my freshman year, the university closed down, and they asked us to go to work with the faculty and the students on moral actions.
Wow.
That would perhaps hope to end the war. And that gave me so much sort of a frame that we could get idealistic things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gave me an idea of unlimited ability to get stuff done.
Okay.
And I think that my time at Clark, which was 4 years, obviously, really shaped my confidence that my ideas. What I came to discover is I always thought everybody had great ideas and it was easy to have great ideas. And
it's not the case.
My ideas were good, and I also learned how to get them done. So one of my cliches always is that it's it's easy to come up with smart people. It's easy to come up with an idea, but it's much more complicated to actually get it done.
Right.
Also at Clark, a very formative part of my period there was I was the general manager of the radio station there, mm-hmm. and that was a real great experience for me as well.
Cool. Michael began his career working for the National Association of Schools of Music as their assistant director for operations. His responsibilities included editing publications, managing the national conventions, and running the finances for the association. During that time, he wrote several publications, including a guide for cooperation between music schools, public radio stations, and arts councils. He also had the vision to organize a conference on music business programs at music schools, which led to new accreditation standards, improved programs, and many new programs.
We got to Washington, D.C. area, and I walked into the National Association of Music in Reston. And the guy who was there was a Yaley, actually, although at the time I was not from Yale. But I grew up in New Haven. We hit it off really well. He had just started his job as executive director there, and he was looking to reorganize the staff, and he was very interested in me. Good. And that was a unique opportunity because NASM is aside from being the accrediting agency, it's also the place where every dean goes to meet every year. So very early on, I got to meet every leader of every music school in America.
Right.
And I was given the opportunity to come up with ideas. I was organizing the national meeting every year. I wrote a few publications. I didn't know when to shut up, which I still don't. And so but I found that my good ideas, I could either mentor or lead people towards actually accomplishing them. And so I'm patient.
Following his service at NASM, Michael became the executive director of the Hart School and director of the Hart Community Division of the University of Hartford in West Hartford, Connecticut. During his time at Hart, Michael became an influential figure, building the community division to become one of the largest divisional schools across the country. He served as a consultant for many community schools of the arts throughout the United States, providing school-wide evaluation as well as support and advice in all areas of school functions, such as logistical operations, office administration, fundraising, and programming. His passion while at Hart involved providing the highest quality instruction to students whose families did not have the financial means to do so on their own. He built countless programs and financial aid systems to support students with financial need, including evaluating student progress to ensure student success in the program. Michael funded these programs through successful grant writing and private donors, building long-term relationships with key supporters to ensure the longevity of the program's success. Michael's current role at Yale continues to support arts education for all ages. He became instrumental in the success of the Music in Schools initiative with the New Haven Public Schools, providing music instruction to public school students through Yale's graduate-level music students and teaching artists. The program has grown to serve over 1,000 students, offering private lessons, honors ensembles, solo recital showcases, summer music camps, and even a symposium designed to bring educational leaders together to discuss how music education can become an essential part of the public school curriculum. Michael has earned my deepest respect as a leader and supervisor and has been my most significant resource in developing my beliefs and practices regarding leadership and administration. His leadership style is one of collaboration, seeking advice from experts depending on the project, and intuitively knowing when to make a decision quickly and when to take the time to fully engage those involved. His most admirable trait is his ability to discover people's passions and capitalize on them, encouraging excellence from everyone he works with. Michael's strategic planning abilities, followed by decisive and well-executed plans, demonstrate his commitment to music education long into the future. Is there anybody that inspired you?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, definitely. I was inspired in college. You're going to love this.
Okay.
I was inspired in college by a Marxist economist who was a professor. And when we shut down the university, I worked with him and a bunch of other students all semester on trying to create an economic boycott of companies to have them protest, to have them come out and make a statement against the Vietnam War.
Okay.
So we tried to get, Coca-Cola and these other major companies. We failed. I mean,
Yeah.
it was naive and difficult, but it was such a learning experience to watch how he was somebody that I really trusted and valued. That's number one. World. The opposite end of the spectrum was when I got the job at NASM. There's no question that my boss there, Samuel Hope, who was the executive director the whole time I was there, was an enormous influence on style.
Yeah.
And really on substance, and also on mentoring because he gave me lots of opportunities there. I think style-wise and leadership style, he always treated people well.
Mm-hmm.
He always tried to solicit opinion.
Okay.
He always put ideas on the table and let people comment on them and even rip them apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a good, So and he gave me the opportunity to meet, every dean in the country, which was quite an experience.
Natural leadership skills are apparent before they are developed. When I first met Michael, he saw in me natural administrative and organizational abilities. He noticed my curiosity, my energy, and my charisma, and encouraged me to accept the job he was offering as opposed to another teaching job. He encouraged me, telling me that he knew I would be a great associate director of the Hart Community Division, a community school of the arts serving about 2,500 students with 200 faculty and staff in the greater Hartford, Connecticut region. He noticed these skills before I did. To be a good leader, you need to know your field well. Michael trained me to know how to do everyone's job so that I would know the organization well and be better equipped to make improvements. My first several months were spent learning every aspect of the school, getting to know the faculty, staff, and students, and learning the basics of my responsibilities. When ready, I made improvements with the approval of key people involved and demonstrated my ability to successfully plan and complete projects. Michael made sure I had his support publicly, and any improvements I needed to make were communicated confidentially with support and acknowledgement that I worked hard and was highly capable, showing his confidence in my abilities. Proactive approaches are best. Michael taught me that being proactive to prevent problems and crises are best. This is the key to efficiency and a positive working environment. Many leaders today are primarily reactive and take the path of least resistance. Unfortunately, this method leads to more logistical fires that need to be extinguished. By being proactive, you are thinking through the entire set of processes, analyzing where potential issues may arise, and finding a way to plan ahead to avoid the problem. In most cases, this simply requires effective and thorough planning and organization. Also, by choosing to address conflicts, you avoid long-term discontent. It's hard to deal with conflict, but it's the leader's responsibility to do so for the betterment of the entire organization. Encourage your staff to find their passion. Michael's guidance during my career taught me that the key to organizational success is staff satisfaction and job performance. Personnel retention leads to more efficient progress, and less turnover requires less staff training. By encouraging staff to learn about themselves and the things they enjoy within the workplace, we can improve their passion and energy. Adjusting job responsibilities and awarding their hard work with recognition and salary increases encourages their longevity and commitment to the organization. Good leadership takes practice. As time passed, he learned about my curiosity and broad skill sets and gave me significant projects beyond the scope of my job description. He knew these challenges would pique my interest, and as I gained more responsibility, he adjusted my job description and salary to match the increasing expectations. Once you build your presence, spread your wings. Michael encouraged me to cultivate my educational and public speaking strengths for the betterment of our field. Once he discovered my expertise in evaluation and assessment, he asked me to design a presentation to be shared with school leaders in the Northeast region. He spent staff meeting time allowing me to practice delivering my presentation and set up our school to serve as a host site for the upcoming regional meeting on community arts education. My efforts proved successful, and he encouraged me to do the same presentation at the next national conference. His constant encouragement and guidance led to my successful presentations at 5 national conferences covering 4 different topics, plus serving on the board of school directors for the National Guild of Community Arts Education, and my work on assessment being highlighted for several years on their website as a guide for other school leaders. Expand your territory. Michael knew the importance of building relationships within the community. With my success came greater trust from him, and he asked me to first accompany him and eventually take his place during meetings with donors, collaborative efforts with other organizations, and Arts Alliance meetings within our community. His efforts fostered my ability to become recognized as an arts leader of my own right, thereby increasing my recognition in our field. These steps led to my invitation to serve on the Kinsella Magnet School of the Arts Advisory Board in Hartford, Connecticut, as well as an elected member of the Committee of School Directors for the National Guild of Community Arts Education. Michael's plan for my success was as grand as I would allow him to push for, and it was all for my best interests, not his.
I mean, I also think my management style is based on humor. Mm-hmm. It's based on gentle cajoling. When I get frustrated or angry, I will slam my phone down, and I will stamp my foot, and I will make a point to people. But I'm trying to lead by a gentle sort of, if not mentoring, then at least cajoling. Yeah. Which for some people works great, and for others doesn't. But I think that's my leadership style. It's always been spending time with people. Mm-hmm. I here, and I did it at Hart as well. You walk around, you talk to people, you get them feeling comfortable with you, and you solve their problem. Yeah. And when there's a problem, if you solve a problem quickly, it sets a tone for someone that allows them to respect you, because So I also did that sort of thing. So my management style is personal.
Winston Churchill, like many other successful leaders, felt it was important to get to know all types of people. This is consistent with Michael Yaffe's approach to, at some point, learning everyone's job in your organization so that you are better informed and better equipped to provide accurate leadership, having all the necessary details to make informed decisions. Churchill also knew his weaknesses well and accounted for them. He trusted his counsel and valued their advice. Michael did the same with all significant decisions, making sure that key people were engaged in the process so that he had the most comprehensive knowledge he could, and his staff were supportive of the changes due to their involvement in the decision-making process. Michael also stood firm on his beliefs, similar to Churchill's opposition to Hitler. Michael believes that students of all backgrounds should receive high-quality instruction, which is difficult to adhere to in a training program at the university level. He was pressured to allow undergraduate students to teach youngsters from the community division so that undergraduate students could practice teaching in their field. Michael insisted on a minimum of a bachelor's degree in their field to ensure excellent educational opportunities for all students. When he went to Yale, he also insisted on highly trained teachers for the Music in Schools initiative. Charles V had 2 leadership characteristics that are similar to those found with Michael Yaffe. First, Charles V was a strong administrator, able to finish projects and organize well. Second, he was not addicted to power and was comfortable giving up his leadership role. Michael was also very skilled at organizing and completing projects, showing his administrative strengths. Additionally, on many occasions, he passed his leadership torch on to me, fostering my ability to develop my leadership skills. He encouraged me to build my national reputation as a school leader, knowing that my success did not weaken his position, but strengthened it, because he was responsible for my training. Many leaders do not want to share their position of power, and that frequently leads to significant issues within their community. Abraham Lincoln showed tremendous strength in his emotional intelligence. He was quite successful at reading the crowd and determining how far to push an issue, while still reaping positive results. Michael has that emotional intelligence and taught me to use my EQ strengths as well. The Heart Community Division went through significant changes during my tenure, including the acquisition of a dance school and opening a new satellite branch. He was able to reassure staff of any areas of concern and follow up with their suggestions to smooth out the transitions. He also knew when people were stressed and needed space to work through their issues. He would then approach them at a later time once they've had time to process their emotions and ask if they needed more support. Charlemagne had a strong capacity to strategize what alliances he needed to make in order to gain power and support for his future efforts. Michael is very talented in this area as well. He built relationships with key artistic leaders in the community, having coffee or lunch just to get to know each other and talk about ideas, so that at a later date when he needed their support, it was much easier for him to secure their endorsement. Examples of this include his service on boards and presence at countless events and community gatherings. One of Khan's strengths was his ability to delegate power. Michael knew that if he chose to do everything himself, he would have too much responsibility to be effective and efficient, and therefore delegated other staff to lead specific areas of the school. This ensured expertise in each area, plus strong counsel for decision making. This practice also divided up logistical tasks to make the workload lighter for everyone, having strength in numbers to accomplish more than one person can handle. Napoleon was a good example of someone who rose to the top of the leadership chain based on merit, as opposed to the more traditional inheritance through nobility that was common during Napoleon's time. Michael utilized this approach to management and leadership as well, awarding staff with greater responsibility and salary increases as they proved their success rate and valuable skill sets. Those who did not show improvement did not receive greater responsibility and accompanying pay increases if they asked. Those who could prove their worthiness were compensated and celebrated accordingly. Passion for your organization. The ideal leader has a passion for the mission or goals of their organization. For example, Michael Yaffe expressed his passion for providing high-quality arts education for all students. His passion was communicated in a way that all staff shared that passion and was able to communicate that passion to the public. Strong leaders need a profound belief in what they are doing to improve their community so that they can maintain an energetic compassion for what they do. Characteristic traits. Organizations thrive under many types of talented leaders with very different management styles. However, there are a few traits that are consistent amongst the more successful leaders, historically and in the present. Leaders need to be organized and able to make reliable decisions so that projects and issues can be dealt with effectively and efficiently. They need to be fair, respectful, compassionate, and engaging in order to recruit and retain the best supportive staff they can. They need a sense of humility in order to best understand their strengths and weaknesses so that they can adequately compensate for their weaknesses and seek advice from those who have a greater knowledge of the issues at hand. Having a high emotional intelligence is also important because these abilities facilitate good hiring skills, listening skills, empathy, and the ability to innately understand the needs of the staff and the community they serve. Strong leaders also need to depict integrity, which helps build trust and confidence amongst the people they serve. Transparency and communication also supports an environment of trust, positive direction, and engagement in order to keep the organization moving forward with a healthy atmosphere. Lead by example. Leading by example can show the people in the organization that every person and every responsibility is important to the success of the institution. Showing commitment, hard work, dedication, and respect portrays to the community that those traits are important and valuable. In fact, people in leadership positions need to exemplify every trait that they want emulated throughout the organization. If respect and cooperation is of high value to the leadership, those traits need to be shared with the community of people involved. If people are not shown respect by their leader, They will interpret that action to mean that respect is optional, and the lack of respect will trickle down through the organization over time until someone changes it. Knowing your field. Getting to know your field equips leaders to develop a profound knowledge of the inner workings of the organization, which helps them make more educated and informed decisions on future improvements. In reality, this means that a strong leader knows enough about every responsibility in the organization to make useful decisions that will benefit its longevity and success. Many fields have umbrella organizations that provide professional development specific to their needs. Getting involved in those systems and generating a support network can help those in leadership positions gain valuable resources and also help support colleagues in their field who may benefit from the knowledge you possess. This spirit of cooperation can be a tremendous asset for many organizational leaders. Proactive leadership. The core element of proactive leadership is the drive to make decisions and get things done. Unfortunately, the majority of leaders, based on current business polls, concludes that the biggest issues leaders have include being reactive to problems, 55% of those polled, rather than proactive, such as the ability to plan ahead so thoroughly that they are able to prevent most issues. Another current management flaw revolves around the tendency to avoid conflict or take the path of least resistance, 33% of those polled. To be proactive, one has to be gutsy, brave, and able to take action, even if they are nervous or scared of the consequences. That's the essence of leadership, to rise above the mediocrity and take risks that may be painful or result in failure, but also may turn out to be fabulous.
Well, a very important one is listening, and I feel like in some ways I'm really bad at it. But when I pay attention, I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think honesty, um, even in difficult times, is really important. And I think some aspect of a more moral fiber is really important. I think directness in telling people what you really think is important. I think having some core values that you won't, what's the word? You won't deviate from.
Yeah.
And I think, today there's, we're at such a bad point in how leaders communicate. I mean, it's not just Trump; it's everybody.
Yeah.
It's all of the House and all of the Senate, Democrats and Republicans. Nobody knows how to communicate anymore.
Right.
And it's the country that doesn't know how to communicate. Kansas doesn't know how to communicate with Connecticut. So so I think communication is among the most important things, and obviously ideas come with it. I am not I'm not a big advocate of of managers not being passionate, leaders not being passionate about the organization that they're leading. There's a push to, in some places, that the only place you want leaders is from MBA programs, right?
Right.
And I'm positive it's what I want to do.
Okay. And that was one of the things that I had hit on when I was reading, is having that passion for whatever you're.
I think so. It's funny. It's a battle here right now, because a lot of the people in my role here as associate deans around campus, there's a push towards associate deans being bureaucrats more than being passionate about their music, which that's true in all the fields. The last two are me and the architecture associate dean, and he's retiring next month. And so
Wow.
it's they're more trying to find MBAs and people with leadership degrees of various sorts, which I think misses the point.
Michael currently resides in Connecticut with his wife Gail and has 2 grown children who are married with their own children. He enjoys frequent family visits and attending concerts. During my time working with Michael, I learned how to develop my leadership skills, thereby becoming a leader myself. Michael's leadership philosophy, helping others to become leaders, is consistent with Nietzsche in that he has the humility necessary not to seek power, but to help others develop themselves in ways that they, too, can become significant contributors to the betterment of arts education.